Okay, so the next thing once you've got Beth actually in the chair is to make sure that her head position is right, and this is something that can move over time. So I'm just talking through where you can find the tools to be able to fix it. So down here at the side of the chair, all the way down at the bottom, are 3 Allen keys, and the one that you need for the majority of the chair is the first one. So I'm going to select that one and show you. So I'm going to come around to the other side. Beth's headrest has got 3 pivotal points. So one at the bottom here, which which changes the angle of how far forward or backwards Beth's head is being pushed. This one at the top on the Allen key, which changes the angle of the headrest. And then this one, which is your quick release, which lifts the whole thing, flips it up and rotates it. So if you think that Beth's head is in the wrong position, or you think it looks uncomfortable, and the couple of things to watch out for are the headrest actually touching on Beth's shoulders or being too high up the head. So you want to be able to see the crown of Beth's head, and you want to also see her shoulders. The other thing to look at is if Beth's head is tipping forward too far, particularly if she's either pushing her vent off or it looks like her chin is touching the trachea. It shouldn't ever be touching there. Or the other thing to look out for if her head's too far back and it looks like she's just staring at the ceiling. So none of those are good positions. The best way to make sure that you put it into the right position is to have someone looking from the front and someone adapting at the back, because then you can get the angle, otherwise it's a bit hard to see. And I would suggest that you always do all 3 of the buttons of the angle points. So we're going to loosen all 3 of them, check Beth's position, and then tighten them back up again. There are additional screws and Allen keys at other points along this top bar and round the side. They generally don't move. They change how far out or in the headrest is set, or whereabouts on a sliding scale it is. They stay put. They don't need to be touched. And similarly, there's one right at the bottom here, which shows how high up or low it is. Again, they're big adjustments. They don't need to be touched. So it's just these 3. So before I just make the changes to that, I'm going to put that somewhere safe. Here we go. The first thing to say is about the quick release. So if, for example, you're getting Beth's coat on now that it's winter, this is really important to do. So release the quick release. I'm holding it on this side, as you can see. So now that can move. I've got my hand under the back to hold Beth's head to show you. So I can lift that all the way out. So when you're doing Beth's coat, you don't necessarily need to lift it all that way. But if you're pushing something down and you could end up just putting pressure on the headrest, it's better to release it, lift it slightly, jiggle your coat around, for example, and then put it back into place. Similarly, if you're hoisting at all, you also need to get this out of the way, because when Beth gets lifted up and hoisted, her bottom will catch the headrest and you'll end up pulling it. So the more you can release the quick release, the better, because otherwise you put undue pressure on it, and then we end up breaking this connection. So let's imagine that we need to reset it. Beth, I'm just going to stick your hair down the side there. That's the only problem, hair gets in the way. So righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. So I'm going to pull this up towards me to loosen it off. As you can see, I'm holding the headrest in place. I'm just going to loosen it a little bit. I'm going to do the same at the top one as well. There we go. Just take a little bit of slack. You can see straight away it's loosening. And then on the final one, there we go, I've loosened that off. So this now can move on all dimensions. So it moves backwards, it bends in and out, and it bends up and down. So we want to make sure that it's in the right place for Beth. So I'm going to put it there under your head there. So Rachel, you're going to be my eyes for me and tell me if I've got it in the right place. Got your hair in the way now, Beth. So I want to make sure, first of all, that Beth's head feels like it's in about the right place. And to be able to judge that, we want to be able to see that from her back of her neck to the top of her head is in line. So the back of your head always sits behind you. Imagine your spine going up. Your back of your head sticks out. So we're not trying to let the back of her head in line with her spine. We're trying to get the top of her head in line with the back of her neck. So that looks about the right distance to me.
Yeah, that looks good to me.
And now I'm going to think about this back one, and I'm going to think about how high up or low down it is. So I want to make sure that the top of the crown of Beth's head is sticking out and it's not touching on her shoulders. That looks about right, yeah?
Yeah.
And then the one here, I've got to make sure is cupping Beth's neck. And so I want to make sure that the back of the bottom of the headrest is flat against Beth's neck. That I can't really get my fingers up. There shouldn't be a gap. So I'm going to hold that and see if you can see it, Rachel. If I tilt that, can you see that that is now touching at the top of Beth's head, but underneath you've got a gap? So that's not a good position.
Yeah.
So it needs to be cupping and supporting the back of the neck. I've moved everything else. Does that look about right? Yeah, that's cupping your head. You're not too far forward, not too far back.
No.
And now the tricky bit is tightening it up before you move your hand. So obviously when you tighten things, everything starts to move a bit. So you'll need to just keep checking we've got it about in the right place. So I'm going to start tightening things up and then I'll go back, finish it off. Right, does that still look about right? Does that feel good, Beth? Yeah.
Yeah.
Always good to check with the expert. Tighten those as tight as you can. I'm now going to take my hand off so that I can give it even more welly. So you do need to put quite a bit of pressure on this to make sure that it stays. If Beth's had a day when she's particularly stretchy and she's putting a lot of pressure, although there we go, I think that actually moved a bit. There we go. Is that good? Looks brilliant. So even though the chair has actually got a hydraulic in the back of it, there's a spring in the back of it, so when Beth pushes, it bounces. The back of the chair bounces, but the headrest can still get pushed out of place, so it can slowly move over time, so it is worth checking it. The other thing that's good to check is if Beth's high flow alarming quite a bit, and you've checked the cuff, and you know that the cuff's okay, it could be because her neck is too far back. So that's something to look for. If she's high flow alarming and her neck's back but there's enough air in the cuff, it's probably that she's just the position of her neck is not right, so you'll need to tilt it so it's a bit further forward. I think that's everything. Is there anything I've missed, Rachel?
Don't think so.
Does that sound good? Rock and roll.